Something rather extraordinary happened this morning on my mother's birthday. It's March 29th, 2019. I have kind of an urgent prophetic message, and I was putting puzzle pieces together. There were two videos I watched in particular. One was Leland Jones was showing about what happened when Mike Pompeo on Purim was with the rabbis in the underground tunnels, and specifically in the underground synagogue. President Trump sent Mike Pompeo there in place of himself. And at the bema seat in this underground synagogue, and I assume because he mentioned that it was a semicircular seating arrangement, that would be the chamber of hewn stone, like the rabbis, the Sanhedrin members, sat in the chamber of hewn stone previously in 2,000 years ago. I watched as Mike Pompeo signed some document on the bema platform, on a podium, signing his name to some documents with the elite Sanhedrin members standing next to him, and they took photos in a big photo op at that moment during Purim. It was at that moment that something occurred to me that I wanted to share with you today. That was yesterday when I saw Leland Jones' video about Mike Pompeo signing that document. But then this morning I was watching Steve Monette, and he was talking about the Lord coming at Passover, and it was in the video part 4, where something just, according to what he said, and fitting the puzzle pieces together, I'm going to present something to you that is absolutely stunning. And if we go back to Daniel chapter 9 and read, starting from verse 25, 26, and 27, let me just read that real quick, okay? Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks, and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. And the end thereof shall be with the flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even unto the consummation, and that determination shall be poured upon the desolate. Okay, so Steve Monette is saying a different interpretation, that it's talking about the Messiah being cut off, and then, but not for himself. And then it's talking about the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, which we know happened already with the second temple. I don't know if that refers to the Messiah or not, although it's never been interpreted that way until recently, that he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even to the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Okay, well, if that does pertain to the Messiah, Steve Monette makes the point that every single covenant that God made, the Abrahamic covenant, the Mosaic Moses covenant, and the New Covenant were all made on Nisan 14, which is Passover. So I'm suddenly sitting here thinking about the 1 week being Passover week. In other words, he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Passover week. So I'm sitting there thinking, if Messiah made the new covenant during Passover with his own blood, and as Steve said, we are already covered by the blood, just like in the Exodus. So we will go into the chambers and be hidden while the judgment comes upon the earth. That's what he was talking about. So I'm sitting here thinking about Mike Pompeo in the other video signing that document, and none of us really know what it is. At least I didn't find out what it was yet. We know that the Jewish rabbis with the Sanhedrin said that the Messiah was going to be showing up at the time of Passover, their person that they want to proclaim as their Messiah, other than Jesus. So now think about it, because I was putting these pieces together and I was astounded. I'm thinking, because we know that we've already been redeemed by Messiah Yeshua, so let's put it this way. Mike Pompeo went to Jerusalem and signed those documents in that underground chamber of hewn stone synagogue where the Sanhedrin members were there signing it with him. Mike Pompeo is still underneath the power of the President of the United States. Before Mike Pompeo, I think it was before he, when he was touring the underground tunnels, before he signed that document, or documents, whatever it was, and he did it all on camera, so it must have been monumental. He was shown a model of the third temple before signing those documents. So I'm thinking that they signed something allowing the Jews to build the third temple, and that Mike Pompeo went there to sign it for Trump, ahead of what's coming next. And I'm thinking that Donald Trump is either going to go there at Passover, or maybe from the White House with some rabbis at hand, that he would have the authority above Mike Pompeo to confirm and make stronger whatever Mike Pompeo signed. So in essence, Donald Trump has more power than Mike Pompeo, so he would be the one at Passover to confirm the covenant, to make it stronger, to be signed by the President of the United States, and thus allow the third temple to be built, passing the peace deal of the century. And since Passover is a week, that would mean that the president would be strengthening whatever Mike Pompeo signed into law in the underground synagogue with the Sanhedrin elite rabbis. Donald Trump would be strengthening it, confirming it, making it stronger, because he has more power if he signed it into law on Nisan 14 when every other covenant's been made. And he would, in essence, because Passover is 7 days, he would be confirming the covenant for 7 days. In other words, he would be doing it on Nisan 14 at Passover, which is 7 days long. Now we know, because they did not accept Messiah Yeshua as their king, and that they're going to accept another in his place, then what we've got going on here would be a parallel. In other words, Jesus came, he's the Messiah. If he confirmed the covenant in his blood on Nisan 14 at Passover, then the reason why there's that 7 left, of Jacob's trouble is 7 weeks of years instead of just being the 7 days of Passover. He confirmed the covenant during Passover on Nisan 14 in his own blood. And now the Jewish people, because they rejected him and hasn't accepted him as their king, they'll be mourning for the Messiah from the time he was cut off until the end of Jacob's trouble. Okay, so they will have to complete that 7 years because of that. And because they haven't accepted him. So now there's a parallel happening, that there's this Antichrist that's going to confirm the covenant on Nisan 14 with them. That's really a covenant of death, because judgment and death is going to come because of this covenant. He will confirm a covenant for 1 week, which is the 7 years of Jacob's trouble. And the last half, when the sacrifice is cut off, is going to be the worst time of the judgment. So I'm saying that basically that Jesus is the Messiah. He made the new covenant, like Steve Monette pointed out, the new covenant on Passover, and he confirmed the covenant for 1 week. Now, because the Jews rejected that, they've been in mourning and will be in mourning through the 7 years when they make a covenant that's signed on Nisan 14 that's strengthened at Passover, that I think is the one Mike Pompeo just signed. And it will include the peace deal of the century on Nisan 14 or on Passover week. I believe probably Passover, since these other covenants were all signed into God's law. I mean, that was the day, Nisan 14, that all these covenants of God were accomplished. So this other person that's not the true Messiah, but that the Jews will accept as their Messiah, will strengthen the covenant on Nisan 14 for 1 week. Instead of being 7 days, it's 7 years. So the covenant will be signed at Passover, which is a week, but it will be 7 years. Now, it occurred to me about the Feast of First Fruits, and I was just talking about that's when my almond tree sprouted. So Jesus made the new covenant in his blood on Nisan 14, and he was resurrected on the Feast of First Fruits. So what does it say about the resurrection? What does it say about Jesus, that he's the first fruits, and how the order of people that will be raised from death to life? First Christ, who was resurrected on the Feast of First Fruits, 3 days and 3 nights after Passover. And then those that are Christ's, that are his first fruits, shall be resurrected. So it would make sense that the resurrection of the dead would happen at that time. And I mean, on the anniversary of Christ's resurrection, it would make sense that he would come and resurrect the dead from their graves. Now, what's interesting is in my book, The Almond Tree, Aaron's Rod, the Messiah, King of Israel, I talked about how when the Lord would appear in the cloud in the book of Exodus with Moses and the Hebrews in the wilderness, the glory cloud always appeared very early in the morning. And of course, Jesus was resurrected very early. So I have more to say about this, but I wanted to present this and make it as short as possible, that it's possible the resurrection of the first fruits of Messiah, who are next in line to be resurrected after the Messiah, would be resurrected on the Feast of First Fruits. Just exactly after, the Messiah. First those that are Christ, then those who are Christ's first fruits. That's the order. Now, of course, we know that, we've all been expecting the Feast of Trumpets to be the time, but as, people have pointed out many things about Passover as possibly being the time, and because the fact that Christ made the covenant with many people at Passover in his blood, just like with the Exodus, and the lamb's blood was placed on the doorposts so that those, judgments didn't come upon the death of the firstborn. But in the future, after Passover, if that was to happen and we were raptured up, to be with those that are resurrected, then the judgments would come, and you also have the plagues like you did, like the plagues of Egypt. You're going to have judgment plagues and all of that coming. So you do have a parallel there that Christ confirmed a covenant with many for 1 week. And that, because they rejected the Messiah, they will go through the time of mourning for the Messiah from the time he's cut off through Jacob's trouble. That covenant that Mike Pompeo signed would be strengthened if Donald Trump, who has more power than him as the President of the United States, confirmed that covenant on Passover, on Nisan 14, when all the covenants are signed. All the covenants of God have happened. And that would put the whole final 7 years into play and get that ball rolling. Because now it makes sense to me that he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. And if he did it on Nisan 14, it would be at the beginning of the week. He's confirming the covenant at Passover. Confirming the covenant with many for 1 week. And that'll be 7 years instead of 7 days. So that's what I wanted to share that was really amazing. And it's very much food for thought to think about. Because if this is really what's happening, and the Lord had me kind of putting those two things together, that Donald Trump will confirm that covenant because he's the president and has more power than Mike Pompeo, and will bring in that peace deal at the time, verifying what I think Mike Pompeo signed was that the Jews could build that third temple because he was shown the model of it. And then he went and signed all those papers, and they all had their big photo op, and it was a monumental moment. Now, it was done although it was done with a photo op, we don't really know what was in that signing. But if the president confirms it, makes it stronger on Nisan 14, then that will get the ball rolling for the 1 week, the 7 years that are left. And that 7 years, as I told you in another one of my videos that's part of my book, that the Lord had showed me that the time that Joseph mourned with his brothers for their father Israel is the same amount of time that Israel will be mourning for the Messiah from the time he's cut off, including that last 7. So he confirmed a covenant with many. They rejected his covenant, but they're accepting another covenant to be signed with many for 1 week. And that week is the week of Passover, which starts that 7-year span of the judgment because they refuse to accept him. And that's not, I mean, that is just, wow, the dove just flew right in front of me. Oh, right there in front of me. She just kind of hovered by. Holy Spirit power. Wow, I wish you had seen her, but you heard her. You heard her. She was kind of hovering like this with her, she was kind of going like this with her wings, hovering by like that. How cool is that? I think the Lord just confirmed it. So putting these two things together this morning, I was really astounded because I realized that President Trump has the power to strengthen whatever Mike Pompeo signed, making it stronger as he brings the peace deal in with it to cause that third temple to be built, which Mike Pompeo saw that model. Wow. That dove just, I mean, seriously, she went by like, she was hovering like this, going like this by, right in front of me. She's never done that in front of me before. She's always above me, you know, flying over to the roof. That is neat. Wow. So, God is just putting these things together. And I think we are at the threshold of something that we have no concept of. I mean, this is powerful. And that dove just hovering by, at that moment, wow. And she called out. That is profound. So I hope this makes you excited because we really could be looking at the confirmation of the covenant. The two chickadees just landed right in front of me too on the bush or on the tree. Wow. I wish you had seen that dove fly by. I should have spun the camera around, but I had no idea she was going to do it. Neat. And now it's starting to rain. So I guess I better go in before my camera gets wet. Anyway, isn't that exciting? He shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, and that week is Passover week. And they're going to pick somebody else as their Messiah. But we are protected and hidden. And the resurrection of the dead, the first fruits, could be resurrected when Jesus was resurrected. Astounding. I wonder if this is really going to happen this way. Time will tell, but I am so excited and I'm just kind of in shock about it. Anyway, it's starting to rain, so I better go in. God bless, and take it to heart, friends. Okay, here's the signing. You've got Benjamin Netanyahu signing this document, and then Mike Pompeo signing the document. Behind them, it looks like the world on a stand, like it's going to go throughout the whole world. Here he is with the third temple model, right? You know, they signed that document after looking at this, or before. Here he's looking at the third temple model. And here's Mike Pompeo signing it. Netanyahu signs it. Friedman signs it. So since Donald Trump is over Pompeo in power, he could sign it come Nisan 14 to confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, which is the week of Passover. And now I came outside and it is snowing. It's snowing. See? It's white on the ground. Here's the snow on the bushes that fell. And it's nighttime, but you could see how the trees look. And this is after the honeybees and the bumblebees were just on my flowering trees, pollinating my almond tree, my miracle almond tree from my book, and on the peach tree. Can you believe this? And all of this is coming together, showing something profound is happening.